Eliza Thorne's hand trembled as she held the small brass key. The house was silent around her, with only the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway marking time. Her husband, Reid, wasn't due back from his business trip for another 2 days. Plenty of time to finally see what lay behind the locked door in his study. 20 years of marriage, and she had never questioned it. "Just financial documents and client information," he'd always said with that reassuring smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. Boring stuff, really. Confidentiality agreements. But 3 weeks ago, she had seen him emerge from that room at 3 a.m., his face ashen, hands gloved, carrying a heavy black garbage bag to his car. She inserted the key, found after hours of searching through his belongings, into the lock. It turned with surprising ease, as if inviting her in. The door swung open on well-oiled hinges. The smell hit her first. Chemical, antiseptic. Like a hospital, but with an underlying mustiness that spoke of secrets kept too long. Her finger found the light switch. What illuminated before her wasn't a storage room for financial documents. It was a shrine. The walls were covered, floor to ceiling, with photographs, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes. At the center stood a wooden desk with an open laptop and a leather-bound journal. And behind it all, a large map with red pins marking locations across the northeastern United States. Eliza stepped forward, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. The photographs were all of women, young, smiling, alive. And interspersed between them were other photos. The same women, but different. Unsmiling, vacant, no longer alive. Her hand flew to her mouth as she stared at the map with its constellation of red pins. Each one labeled with a name and date. The most recent pin, marked only 2 months ago. Valerie Sorensen, 34. A woman whose disappearance had dominated local news. A woman whose case Reid, respected criminal psychologist and consultant to the police department, had been called in to profile. "Oh my God," Eliza whispered, her world collapsing around her. "What have you done?" Her phone rang, shattering the silence. Reid's name flashed on the screen. "Hello?" she answered, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Hey, honey." His warm, familiar voice filled her ear, the voice that had whispered words of love to her for 2 decades. "Just wanted to let you know I'm wrapping up early. Surprise, I'll be home tonight, 6 months earlier, to Reid Thorne. The man who makes us all look bad." Marcus lifted his champagne glass as laughter rippled through the crowd gathered in the Thornes' expansive backyard. 20 years of marriage, the most successful private practice in the state, and somehow still finds time to help the police catch the bad guys. "How do you do it all, man?" Reid smiled modestly, his arm around Eliza's waist. At 52, he still turned heads, tall with distinguished gray at his temples, intelligent eyes behind designer glasses. The picture of success and stability. "It's all Eliza," he said, squeezing her closer. Without her holding down the fort, none of this would be possible. The assembled friends and colleagues, fellow psychologists, police officers, the district attorney, raised their glasses. "To Eliza!" She smiled and accepted the toast, leaning into her husband's embrace. At 49, she had built her own successful career as an art history professor at the local university. Their daughter Chloe was finishing her 2nd year at Cornell. From the outside, the Thornes embodied the perfect life. Later, as Eliza loaded the dishwasher and Reid dried wine glasses, she felt the familiar contentment of their routine. "Successful night," he commented, carefully polishing a crystal stem. She nodded, though I think Marcus had one too many. "Did you see him cornering the new detective?" "What's her name, Reyes?" "Detective Reyes, yes. She's impressive. Only 34 and already making waves in violent crimes." Reid set down the glass. "She's been assigned to the task force for the missing women cases." Eliza paused. "That's the 3rd one this year, isn't it? That poor woman from Lakeside?" Reid nodded solemnly. "Valerie Sorensen. Left work on a Tuesday evening, never made it home. The department asked me to consult on a psychological profile. Any leads?" His expression darkened. "Nothing substantial. But whoever is doing this is methodical, careful. He picked up another glass. Let's talk about something else. How about that faculty retreat next month? Still planning to go? Later that night, Eliza woke to find Reid's side of the bed empty. Not unusual. He often suffered from insomnia and would work late in his study. She padded down the hallway for a glass of water and noticed the thin line of light beneath his study door. As she approached, she heard his voice, low, intense, as if in an argument. You don't understand. No, that's not... I can't just... She hesitated, not wanting to eavesdrop. But something in his tone made her pause. It has to be handled carefully, he continued. No one can know. A client matter, she assumed. Confidential. Reid took doctor-patient privilege seriously. She returned to bed without disturbing him. But that night, a small seed of unease planted itself within her. The following weeks brought subtle changes. Reid worked later hours. His phone would ring and he would step outside to take calls. He installed an expensive new lock on his study door. Just upgrading security for patient files, he explained when she asked. Ethical obligation. Then came the nightmares. Twice she woke to find him thrashing beside her, muttering names she didn't recognize. When she gently asked about them over breakfast, his expression flickered with something she couldn't identify. Probably just cases mixing together in my subconscious, he said lightly. Hazard of the job. One evening, Detective Reyes called their home phone while Reid was in the shower. Mrs. Thorne? I'm sorry to bother you at home. Is Dr. Thorne available? We found something in the Sorensen case. He's indisposed at the moment. Can I take a message? Just let him know we found her earring at Mercer Point. It's the same signature as the others. He'll understand. After hanging up, Eliza stood in the kitchen, puzzled. Mercer Point was a secluded area near the lake, about 20 minutes from their home. A beautiful spot where she and Reid occasionally picnicked. When Reid emerged from the shower, she relayed the message. His face drained of color. Did she say anything else? He asked too quickly. No, just that it's the same signature as the others. What does that mean? He was already reaching for his keys. I need to go in. Don't wait up. He returned after midnight, quiet and withdrawn. When she asked about the case, he shook his head. Can't discuss it. You know that. In their 20 years together, he had always maintained professional boundaries, but never with her. They had shared everything, or so she had believed. The following week, Eliza was sorting laundry when she found a mud-caked sock stuffed deep in Reid's pants pocket. Red clay. The same distinctive soil found at Mercer Point, 2 months after the party. Detective Reyes requested a meeting with Eliza at a coffee shop near the university. Thank you for meeting me. Mrs. Thorne, Reyes said, stirring her coffee. She was younger than Eliza expected. Intense dark eyes, hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. I wanted to talk to you away from the department. Is this about one of Reid's cases? Eliza asked. Reyes hesitated. In a way, I'm investigating the disappearances of 4 women over the past 18 months. Your husband has been consulting on the profiles. Yes, he mentioned that. Mrs. Thorne, Eliza, I've been reviewing old case files and noticed some patterns. She pulled out a small notebook. In each case, the victim disappeared on a night when Dr. Thorne was documented as working late. In each case, the women were found. She paused, choosing her words carefully, at locations with personal significance to your husband. Eliza's coffee cup halted halfway to her lips. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything yet. But I need to ask, has your husband exhibited any unusual behavior recently? Changes in routine? Unexplained absences? The question hung between them. Eliza thought about the late nights, the locked door, the mud-caked sock, the hushed phone calls. Detective, I've been married to Reid for 20 years. He's a respected psychologist who helps catch criminals, not create them. But even as she defended him, the small seed of doubt that had been planted weeks ago began to sprout. Reyes slid a card across the table. If you notice anything that concerns you, call me directly, day or night. That evening, Eliza found herself standing outside Reid's study, hand poised to knock. Inside, she could hear him pacing, talking again in that intense, hushed tone. "The police have nothing. Circumstantial at best," he was saying. "But we need to be cautious now. Detective Reyes is more thorough than the others." Eliza knocked sharply. The conversation abruptly ceased. Seconds later, Reid opened the door just wide enough to step through, closing it firmly behind him. "Who were you talking to?" she asked. "Consultant call?" he said smoothly. "A difficult case. Reid, Detective Reyes came to see me today." His expression didn't change, but she noticed his hand tighten on the doorknob. "What did she want?" "She's investigating those missing women. She had questions about your schedule." Something cold flickered behind his eyes. "And what did you tell her?" "The truth. That you're often working late." She held his gaze. "Reid, is there something you're not telling me?" He softened then, reaching out to touch her cheek. "You know how these cases get to me, Eliza. The victims remind me of you, of Chloe. I get obsessive about solving them." He sighed. "I'm sorry if I've been distant. How about dinner tomorrow night?" "Just the two of us?" She nodded, allowing herself to be placated. But that night, she searched his desk while he showered and found a small key taped beneath a drawer. The next day, Reid left for a 3-day conference in Boston. As soon as his car disappeared down the driveway, Eliza retrieved the key. Standing in Reid's hidden room, surrounded by evidence of unspeakable acts, Eliza struggled to breathe. Her husband's voice continued through the phone, unaware that his carefully constructed world was crumbling. "I should be home around 9, he was saying. "Traffic permitting, I'll have dinner ready," she managed to respond, eyes fixed on a photograph of Valerie Sorensen, alive, smiling at the camera, unaware of the fate that awaited her. "You okay? You sound strange?" "Just surprised. Wasn't expecting you so soon." After hanging up, Eliza forced herself to methodically document everything in the room, taking photos with shaking hands. The map with its constellation of victims, the journal filled with detailed observations of the women before they disappeared, their habits, routines, vulnerabilities, clinical, detached, written in the familiar handwriting of the man who had left love notes in her lunch for 20 years. One entry caught her eye. Subject displays remarkable resilience. Maintained hope until the final day. Mentioned children repeatedly. Pleaded. Psychological breaking point. 72 hours. Bile rose in her throat. This wasn't just evidence of murder. It was evidence of torture. Of a man who studied suffering with academic interest. On the laptop, she found video files labeled with initials and dates. With trembling fingers, she clicked on one. The screen filled with the image of a small room. Concrete walls. A woman huddled in the corner, bruised and terrified. And then Reid's voice. Distorted but unmistakable. "Tell me what you're feeling right now." Eliza slammed the laptop shut, gasping for air. She had 6 hours before he returned. 6 hours to decide how to confront the monster wearing her husband's face. The monster she had loved, slept beside, built a life with. In a daze, she copied files to a USB drive and carefully returned the room to exactly how she had found it, locking the door behind her. Her next call was to Detective Reyes. "I need you to come to my house, alone, no backup, no marked cars." Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears. "I've found something. Mrs. Thorne, if this is about your husband, it is. Then it's worse than you think." She swallowed hard. "He's coming home tonight. We have a few hours." Reyes arrived 30 minutes later in an unmarked sedan. Eliza led her to the kitchen, where she had spread printouts of the photos she'd taken. The detective's professional demeanor cracked as she took in the evidence. "Jesus Christ!" she whispered, examining the map with its pins. "This is comprehensive." "There are videos," Eliza said hollowly. "I only watched a few seconds," Reyes straightened. "Mrs. Thorne, Eliza, we need to get you to a safe location immediately." "When your husband returns?" "No," Eliza's voice was steel. "I need to confront him. That's not safe. This man is not who you think. I've been married to him for 20 years. I gave him a child. If anyone deserves answers, it's me." Reyes studied her face. You're in shock. You're not thinking clearly. I've never been clearer in my life. Eliza met her gaze. I want him to admit what he's done, to my face. Before you take him away. After intense negotiation, they developed a plan. Reyes would have officers surrounding the house, unmarked and hidden. Eliza would wear a wire. At the first sign of danger, they would intervene. He won't hurt me, Eliza insisted. He's had 20 years of opportunities. With all due respect, Reyes countered. You didn't know what he was for those 20 years. Now you do. That changes the dynamic. As evening approached, Eliza prepared a normal dinner, Reid's favorite pasta dish. She set the table with their wedding china, poured wine into crystal glasses, applied makeup to hide her ravaged eyes. The grandfather clock struck 8, then 9. At 9:30, headlights swept across the driveway. Eliza took a deep breath and opened the front door. Reid stood there, overnight bag in hand, a bouquet of lilies in the other, her favorite flowers. Surprise, he said with a tired smile. Missed you. Dinner was a surreal performance. Eliza served pasta, poured wine, asked about the conference while a hurricane raged inside her. Reid talked about panel discussions and networking opportunities, unaware that with each mundane exchange, her hatred crystallized. You seem distracted, he finally said. Reaching for her hand across the table, she allowed his fingers to close over hers, fighting the urge to recoil. I've been thinking a lot today, she said carefully. About trust. About how well we really know the people we love. Something subtle shifted in his expression. Heavy thoughts. Anything specific bring this on? I was wondering about your work. The cases you consult on. She took a deliberate sip of wine. Those missing women, how do you think they felt? In their final moments? Reid set down his fork. That's rather morbid dinner conversation, don't you think? Is it? You must think about it. As a psychologist, the terror they experienced. The betrayal. His eyes narrowed slightly. Eliza, what's going on? She stood, moving to the sideboard where she had placed the printouts from his hidden room, face down. I've always respected your privacy, Reid. 20 years, and I never questioned why one room in our home was off limits to me. His entire body tensed. You went into my study. I did more than that. She turned over the top photograph, Valerie Sorensen's lifeless eyes staring up from the paper. I opened the locked door. For a moment, nothing changed in his face. Then, like a mask slipping, his familiar features rearranged themselves into something alien. The transformation was subtle but complete. Even his posture changed. How did you get the key? His voice was different too, colder, more precise. Does it matter? She laid out more photographs. 8 women, Reid, 8 lives, 8 families destroyed. He studied her with clinical interest, as if she were suddenly a subject rather than his wife. You called the police? Not a question. Yes. They're here now. Yes. He nodded thoughtfully. And you're wearing a wire. Her hand instinctively went to her chest, where the small transmitter was taped beneath her blouse. Reid leaned back in his chair, eerily calm. Tell me, what do you want from this conversation, Eliza? A confession for your detective friends? An explanation? Remorse? I want to know why. Her voice cracked. I want to know if anything about our life together was real. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. Not the warm smile she knew, but something predatory. Would it comfort you to believe it wasn't? That I never loved you? That our entire marriage was some elaborate cover? Was it? No. He said it with such simple conviction that she almost believed him. What we had was real, Eliza, my love for you. My love for Chloe. That wasn't fabricated. Then how could you— She gestured at the evidence between them. Compartmentalization. He spoke as if delivering a lecture. The human mind is remarkably adept at separating contradictory aspects of self. The devoted husband and father, the respected professional. And yes, the other part, the monster. He inclined his head, accepting the label without offense. If you prefer. Those women suffered, begged for their lives. Yes. And you recorded it. studied it, like they were lab rats. My work has always been about understanding the darkest corners of human psychology. He looked at her with something like regret. I simply took a more hands-on approach to my research. Rage boiled over. Research? You tortured and murdered 8 women for research? His expression hardened. Civilization has always advanced on the backs of the unwilling, Eliza. Medical science, psychology, progress requires sacrifice. Don't you dare justify this as science, she hissed. This was about power, control. You enjoyed their suffering. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. And if I did, what then? Would that make it easier for you to reconcile the man you loved with the man sitting before you now? Because I assure you, we are one and the same. He leaned forward, voice dropping to an intimate murmur. The same hands that held yours at the altar tracked those women. The same mind that helped plan Chloe's birthday parties selected them for their resilience, their fight. The same heart that loved you also quickened at their fear. Tears streamed down her face. You're sick. No, I'm exceptional. He stood slowly. And despite what you may think, I never lied about loving you. You were my sanctuary, the one pure thing. Don't. She backed away. Don't you dare talk about love. He moved toward her with predatory grace. They'll give me the death penalty, you know, with this evidence. Is that what you want? I want justice for those women. At the cost of destroying our daughter's life? Imagine what this will do to Chloe, her father revealed as a serial killer. Her identity forever linked to my actions. The daughter of a monster. His voice was hypnotic, reasonable. It's not too late, Eliza. We could disappear together. Start over. For a terrifying moment, some part of her considered it. Not from love, but from the sheer gravitational pull of 20 years shared. The devil you know. Step back, Reid, she said firmly. Instead, he reached out, fingers brushing her cheek in a familiar gesture. My Eliza, always stronger than you knew. The touch broke something in her. She slapped his hand away violently. Don't touch me! You're going to prison, for life, and I'm going to visit you, year after year, to make sure you never forget the lives you destroyed. Including mine, his eyes darkened. I had hoped. Hands where I can see them, Dr. Thorne. Detective Reyes's voice cut through the tension as she stepped from the shadows of the hallway, gun drawn. Step away from your wife. Reid's face transformed again, shudders coming down over his eyes. With deliberate calmness, he raised his hands. Detective Reyes, right on cue. More officers flooded in, surrounding him. As they handcuffed him, he kept his eyes locked on Eliza's. This isn't the end of our conversation, he said quietly. There are things you still don't understand. As they led him away, Eliza felt Detective Reyes's hand on her shoulder. You did well, the younger woman said. It's over now, but Eliza knew it wasn't over. It was merely changing form. 6 months later, Eliza sat in the stark visitation room of the maximum security prison, hands folded on the metal table. She had lost 20 pounds since Reid's arrest. Her hair, once chocolate brown, now streaked with gray. But her eyes had gained something, a hardened resolve. The door buzzed. Reid entered, shackled and escorted by guards. Prison hadn't diminished his presence. If anything, his eyes seemed more intense without the social mask he'd worn for decades. Thank you for coming, he said as the guard stepped back to the wall. I said I would. How is Chloe? Eliza's jaw tightened. Don't ask about our daughter. He nodded, accepting this boundary. The trial date is set, I know. I'll be there every day, as my support. His lips curved in that new, unfamiliar smile. As a witness to justice. They sat in silence for a moment. Finally, he leaned forward. Have you been to the house? To the room? The police have everything. Not everything. His voice dropped to a whisper. There were 9, Eliza, not 8. The blood drained from her face. What? The first one? Before we met, she's not on their list because no one connected her to the others. Different methodology. I was developing my approach. Eliza fought to keep her composure. Why are you telling me this? Because you wanted truth. And because her remains are still out there. An unmarked grave. His eyes gleamed. She deserves to be found, don't you think? To be counted among my work? This isn't a game, Reid, isn't it? He tilted his head. You visit me. I give you a breadcrumb. Eventually, you'll have the full picture. Isn't that what you wanted? To understand? She stood abruptly. Guards! As they moved to take him away, Reid called after her. Check the journal again. Page 43. The reference to first subject. That's your starting point. Weeks later, working with Detective Reyes, they found the remains of 19-year-old Harriet Lowell, missing since 1998. A year before Reid met Eliza, the discovery brought new charges, new headlines, new trauma. But also resolution for a family that had waited 27 years for answers. On the evening after identifying Harriet's remains, Eliza sat alone in her kitchen, no longer the house she had shared with Reid, but a small apartment across town. Detective Reyes had become Maria in the months of working together, and now sat across from her, 2 glasses of bourbon between them. 9 women, Maria said quietly. The DA is confident about the death penalty now. Eliza nodded, staring into her glass. He's still controlling the narrative. Doling out information when it suits him. Playing games, but we're winning. Finding Harriet Lowell was exactly what he wanted. Another chapter in his legacy. Eliza's voice hardened. He's building his mythology from behind bars. The brilliant psychologist who became what he studied. Maria studied her face. What are you going to do? Stop playing his game. Eliza took a deliberate sip of bourbon. No more visits. No more breadcrumbs. Let him fade into obscurity. And Chloe? Pain flashed across Eliza's features. Their daughter had withdrawn from Cornell after the news broke, retreated to her boyfriend's family home in Vermont. She still couldn't bear to see her mother, the woman who had exposed her father. She'll come back when she's ready. Or she won't. Eliza's voice broke slightly. I can live with her anger if it means she's free of his influence. Later, alone, Eliza pulled out the letter that had arrived that morning, Chloe's handwriting on the envelope. Inside, just 3 lines. I understand why you did it. I'm not ready to talk, but I will be someday. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a beginning. As she prepared for bed, Eliza caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman who stared back was neither the trusting wife who had lived in blissful ignorance, nor the shattered victim who had discovered the truth. This woman was something new, forged in betrayal and resilience. She thought of Reid, waiting in his cell for her next visit, waiting to dole out more horrific truths, to maintain his grip on her psyche. No more, she told her reflection. Your story ends here. In the morning, she would call Maria. There was work to be done, not for Reid, but for the families of his victims. For Chloe, for herself. The grandfather clock, the only piece of furniture she'd taken from their home, struck midnight. Eliza closed her eyes and listened to the resonant chimes, marking not just time, but a boundary. Behind those closed doors had been horror, yes. But also liberation, because in exposing Reid's darkness, she had finally found her own light.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.